Why did our emperors promote Buddha darshan instead of Jaina darshan? Whereas Jainism is actually a Hinsavadi if you compare it with Buddhism. So Jain darshan, Jaina dharma, whatever you want to call it, it has been around for a very, very, very long time. At least three, 2.5, 3,000 years. Definitely, probably more than that. Yeah, a very ancient darshan, philosophical school of thought of the dharmic umbrella, and it has some differences from both the darshan and various other philosophical schools of thought within Hindu dharma. That's Jaina. And for a long time you had a very large population in India that practiced Jainism, Jain dharma. When it comes to the southern part of India, I would say the majority of the southern part of India practiced Jaina darshan, Jainism. uh, 2,500 years before today, let's say, maybe three, around that time. So it was very popular, very prevalent for a very long time in very large parts of India. And then both the dharma became a thing, and then various emperors promoted both the dharma. And then eventually, even that declined, and we have the resurgence of what we call Hindu dharma today. But it's all, it's all part of the same umbrella. It's very similar, very small nuances and differences, but the values are the same. But the question is very specific, so let's address that question. I'll tell you. So what emperors are we talking about? We're talking about the Mauryan emperors like Chandragupta Maurya, Ashoka. uh, I'm not sure about Chandragupta Maurya. He probably was not a Buddhist, but Ashoka eventually became a Buddhist, and he propagated both the dharma far and wide, right? We know that. Then you have emperors like the Kushan emperors like Kanishka, who did, you know Kanishka is portrayed as a Buddhist emperor, right? But if you look at Kanishka's coinage, there's a tremendous variety of coins of Kanishka that are available in various museums and so on and so forth. Okay, tremendous variety. If you look at Kanishka's coinage, about 95% of his coinage is what we would call Hindu today. Only 5% has of his coins have images of the Buddha. So that's a nuance that you should actually understand. Okay, Kanishka was more, well, technically more Hindu than Buddhist. Then it comes to when it comes to the Gupta emperors, they did not promote both the darshan or Jaina darshan. It was all uh, Hindu, what we would today call Hindu gods and goddesses. So the only two dynasties or empires of ours in our history that promoted Buddhism as such were the Mauryans and the Kushans to some extent. But when it comes to the Mauryan emperors, hmm, there was an emperor called Samprati, who was a descendant of Emperor Ashok, one of our greatest emperors of all time. So Emperor Samprati, he lived from about 220 BC to about 210 BC, give or take. Okay, he was in power for about roughly a decade, Samprati. And according to Jain historical tradition, Samprati built about 1.5 lakh Jain temples, derasars, jinalayas. Imagine Samprati built more than 1.5 lakh Jain derasars and 10 times that number of Jain murtis, idols. Okay, so clearly Samprati prioritized Jain darshan, Jain dharma over everything else. And it is said that Samprati had taken a vow, an oath, that every morning he will have the foundation of a new Jain temple dug every morning. And if it is not done in the morning, he will not have breakfast. That's according to Jain tradition. So that is Emperor Samprati, who did promote Jain Dharma like nobody else before him or after him, I suppose. And when it comes to Chandragupta Maurya, you know, eventually he was done with his duties as emperor. He was done with serving the civilization, and he retired. He gave up his crown, his throne, his empire to his son, and he traveled all the way to southern India. And he went to a Jain monastery, became a Jain sadhu, and he did Salekhana, which is fasting until you depart your body. So there, once again, you have a Jain connection. So Indian history is very complicated. It is very I would say, very simplistic to portray an empire or a dynasty or a king or an emperor as a Jain or a Buddhist or a Hindu. It was always a mix of everything. Our emperors never, they would have had some favoritism towards this or that because of their personal preferences, but they patronized all darshanas, except for a few uh, instances like Emperor Ashok persecuting the Ajivikas for political reasons and all. But overall, it was not that way. Overall, it was like a very benevolent thing. You patronized everybody. You give uh, patronage to all darshans. Essentially, that's how it was. When it comes to Jainism, yeah, obviously it is really ahinsavadi. If you want to, you know, it is the most non-violent uh, school of thought that you have anywhere in the world. I suppose Jaina Dharma. You can't even knowingly hurt insects or microbes if you can. That's the sort of thing. So it is genuinely ahinsavadi compared to Buddhism. But then, if you want to promote a very ahinsavadi school of thought, then you can't be a conqueror and you can't do carry out military duties, right? So that's perhaps why Buddhism was more popular, because Buddhism, see, whether it is Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, we all prioritize non-violence. Non-violence is the best possible way to live, right? That's what we say. But in the real world, you can't always have non-violence. Sometimes you will have to deal with evildoers. And if you want to establish ahimsa, you have to destroy the hinsak people, right? The violent people. And that's why Buddhism, Hinduism, etc., we've had people who have been warriors. I mean, think of Japan, think of the samurai. Who were the samurai? The samurai were Buddhists.